An ordinary intern greets a quiet visitor in sign language, only to discover moments later he's the new CEO testing the entire company. What happens next will change her career forever. The elevator doors slid open with a soft chime, and every head in the sleek corporate lobby turned. A tall man in a plain gray hoodie stepped out, moving with quiet confidence. He looked more like a traveler than someone arriving for an important meeting. His sneakers were clean but simple, and his face carried a calm focus that didn't match the hurried energy of the morning crowd. Beside the reception desk, 21-year-old marketing intern Aaliyah Carter noticed something unusual. The man wasn't responding to the receptionist's cheerful good morning or the buzz of conversation around him. Instead, he scanned the room with steady, thoughtful eyes, his hands resting loosely at his sides, as if he were listening to something deeper than sound. Aaliyah had always been quick to notice details, an ability that helped her in design projects and office tasks. But this moment felt different. The stranger's posture, the way his gaze moved from person to person without ever flicking toward the receptionist's voice, reminded her of family gatherings with her cousin Malik. Malik had been born deaf, and Aaliyah had spent countless afternoons learning American Sign Language, so they could share secrets and jokes without needing anyone to translate. That memory surfaced instantly, carrying with it a quiet certainty. She sensed that the man in the hoodie might not hear the receptionist at all. Instinctively, she stepped forward, smoothing the front of her blazer to steady her nerves. The lobby was busy, and she was only an intern, but something inside told her not to hesitate. She caught the man's eye, offered a warm smile, and raised her hands. With deliberate clarity, she signed a simple, "Hello, can I help you?" For a heartbeat, he remained still, as if surprised that someone had spoken in his language. Then his expression softened, and a spark of recognition lit his features. His shoulders relaxed, and a faint smile curved across his face. He responded in graceful, practiced motions of his own, hands moving with a rhythm that carried both confidence and relief. "Thank you. I'm here for a meeting." The surrounding lobby seemed to pause. A nearby security guard lowered his coffee cup. The receptionist blinked, clearly caught off guard, her hand frozen above the keyboard. The quiet exchange of signs felt almost like a private world within the bustling office, a conversation only the two of them could fully hear. Aaliyah didn't miss a beat. She nodded, her fingers forming the next question with ease, as though she had been preparing for this moment all morning. "What's your name? Do you have an appointment I can help you find?" Her movements were fluid, confident, the years of practice returning as naturally as breathing. The man watched her intently and answered with the same effortless precision, his eyes brightening as he shared the details of his visit. In that small corner of the polished lobby, surrounded by ringing phones and clicking heels, a quiet connection formed, built not on sound, but on attention and respect. As Aaliyah guided the visitor toward the private conference rooms, the soft click of her heels echoed against the polished marble floor. A few employees paused mid-step, exchanging puzzled glances as the pair passed. Some leaned toward each other, whispering behind cupped hands. To them, the man seemed like an ordinary guest who had somehow slipped through security. No appointment on the digital schedule, no high-end suit, no entourage carrying briefcases or tablets. In an office where every visitor usually announced themselves with a name and a title, his quiet presence drew attention like a ripple across still water. Her supervisor, Mr. Harris, appeared from a side hallway with a folder tucked under one arm, his expression tight. He moved quickly, his polished shoes clicking in sharp contrast to the visitor's silent steps. "Aaliyah," he said, keeping his voice low but unmistakably sharp. "You can't just walk people in like this." "Who even is he?" Aaliyah stopped and turned, meeting her supervisor's narrowed eyes with steady calm. She felt the weight of the moment, but refused to let it rattle her. "He's here for a meeting," she replied, her tone firm yet respectful. "He didn't say with who, but he's." Before she could finish, the visitor turned slightly toward Mr. Harris and offered a polite smile, lifting a hand in greeting. The gesture was simple but confident, a quiet acknowledgement that carried more grace than any words could. Mr. Harris hesitated, caught between offering a handshake or a nod. His eyes darted to Aaliyah for guidance, and in the end he gave a brief, awkward nod, unsure whether to speak or simply step aside. Aaliyah continued down the hallway, her pace unhurried but purposeful. The visitor matched her stride effortlessly, his movements smooth and composed. She opened the door to a bright conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city skyline. "Would you like some water?" she signed, the motions deliberate and clear. He smiled again, the corners of his eyes softening, and thanked her in sign language with an elegant sweep of his hands. The gratitude in his expression was unmistakable, warm, genuine, and quietly powerful. Aaliyah felt an unexpected sense of pride that her effort to communicate had bridged the gap so naturally. As she poured a glass of water and set it on the polished oak table, she couldn't help noticing the quiet strength in the way he carried himself. He didn't seem rushed or distracted, as so many executives and visitors usually were. Something about his calm presence sparked a quiet curiosity in her, as though there was more to his story than he allowed the room to see. Yet she sensed that prying would break the easy trust they had established. So she simply offered a reassuring smile and took a seat near the door, ready to assist but careful not to intrude. Minutes later, the double doors at the far end of the conference room swung open with a brisk whoosh, and the company's senior leadership team swept in. Their hurried steps and animated whispers instantly changed the energy in the room. Moments earlier, the atmosphere had been quietly curious. Now it pulsed with an undercurrent of urgency and tension. The visitor, still dressed in his plain gray hoodie and well-worn sneakers, rose smoothly to his feet. He didn't straighten his clothes or fidget the way many guests might when facing a group of high-powered executives. Instead, he stood with the same composed confidence he'd carried since stepping out of the elevator. One by one, the arriving managers slowed their stride, their conversations fading as they took in the sight of him. The silence stretched long enough for Aaliyah to feel her heartbeat quicken. She glanced from face to face, noticing the sudden shift from polite curiosity to something closer to awe. A senior manager finally broke the hush, leaning slightly toward her as if sharing a secret too startling to say aloud. "Aaliyah," he whispered, "do you know who this is?" She blinked, shaking her head. "No, should I?" The manager's eyes widened, as if surprised by her innocence. "This is Daniel King," he said, each word measured and deliberate. "Our new majority shareholder and acting CEO." The weight of the revelation hit her like a sudden gust of wind. Aaliyah's breath caught, and her heart skipped a beat. The quiet man she had greeted so casually, the one she had led through the lobby without an appointment, was the new leader of the entire company. Before she could speak, Daniel turned toward her with a warm, knowing smile. The corners of his eyes crinkled with genuine appreciation. Slowly, so everyone in the room could follow, he raised his hands and signed with deliberate clarity, "Thank you for welcoming me so kindly. It meant more than you know." The room seemed to lean closer, the graceful movement of his hands holding their attention like a spell. Then Daniel shifted, his gaze sweeping across the circle of executives. When he finally spoke, his voice was steady and rich, though it carried the distinct rhythm of someone who had learned to speak after first mastering sign. "I was born deaf," he began, each syllable precise. "I read lips well, but walking into a room where someone greets me in sign, it's rare and unforgettable." A collective hush settled over the group. A few executives exchanged uneasy glances, their earlier confidence dimming. It was clear that not one of them had thought to prepare for this moment, let alone to greet him in his own language. Some shifted on their feet, hands clasping nervously. Others lowered their eyes, a quiet understanding dawning that a simple gesture of respect, a greeting in sign language, had come only from a young intern they had barely noticed until now. The meeting turned into something far deeper than a routine business briefing. What began as a scheduled update on quarterly targets and pending deals slowly unfolded into an intimate conversation about resilience, perspective, and the values that truly define a company. Daniel remained standing at the head of the table, the city skyline glowing behind him as the late morning sun filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Every person in the room leaned forward, captivated. He began to share his story with a quiet confidence that commanded attention. Daniel spoke of his childhood, of classrooms filled with noise he could not hear, and of teachers who doubted he would ever master speech or compete in a world that often overlooked people like him. Yet he described those challenges without bitterness. Instead, his words carried a calm strength, a sense that each obstacle had shaped him into the leader standing before them. He recounted the early days of his tech startup, when investors questioned whether a deaf entrepreneur could run a fast-moving company, and how he built a groundbreaking communications platform that eventually redefined accessibility in the digital age. As he spoke, Daniel's hands moved fluidly, at times accentuating his words with the graceful motions of sign language, as though weaving his two languages together. "I chose to arrive today without an announcement or entourage," he explained, his gaze sweeping across the long conference table. "I wanted to see how people treat someone they don't recognize. It tells me more about a company's culture than any presentation or report." The executives sat in thoughtful silence. Even those who prided themselves on sharp instincts now looked humbled, realizing how quickly they had judged the quiet man in the hoodie. Daniel let the pause settle before continuing. "I value people who notice," he said softly. "People who listen even when no words are spoken." His eyes found Aaliyah at the far end of the table, and a faint smile touched his face. Today, one person did exactly that. Mr. Harris shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his earlier impatience now a source of visible regret. Clearing his throat, he murmured an apology for questioning Aaliyah's decision to escort Daniel without verification. Daniel inclined his head in acknowledgement, his expression free of judgment, but full of quiet understanding. Then he surprised everyone. "I came here not only to finalize an acquisition," he said, his voice firm but warm, "but to find those who reflect the heart of this company. Leadership isn't about titles or corner offices. It's about empathy and awareness. Aaliyah, you reminded me what true leadership looks like. Seeing someone for who they are, not just what they appear to be." A soft murmur of agreement rippled through the room as Aaliyah felt every eye turned toward her. Her cheeks warmed, but she sat tall, meeting Daniel's gaze with steady humility. In that moment, the young intern understood that a simple greeting, one born of respect and instinct, had spoken louder than any resume ever could. By the end of the day, Aaliyah's life looked very different from the way it had begun that morning. The buzz of the office had slowed to a gentle hum as most employees gathered their things, but she remained seated in a quiet corner of the conference room, her thoughts swirling. Daniel had requested a brief private meeting before leaving for the airport, and the weight of that invitation filled her with both excitement and a hint of nervousness. When he entered, still dressed in the same understated hoodie, his presence carried the same calm assurance she had noticed the moment he stepped off the elevator. He thanked her once more, signing each word with deliberate care so that his gratitude felt as tangible as a handshake. He explained how rare it was to be greeted in sign language without any hesitation or expectation. "You didn't stop to wonder who I might be or whether it was worth the effort," he said, his voice gentle but firm. "You simply saw a person who needed to be understood, and you acted. That tells me everything I need to know about your character." Then Daniel outlined an offer she hadn't dared to imagine. He was launching a new diversity and accessibility initiative that summer, a project designed to make the company's products and workplace more inclusive for people of all abilities. He wanted her to join the founding team and personally mentor under his guidance. "You have the instinct this program needs," he said. "If you're willing, I'd like to help you grow as a leader." Aaliyah could hardly find the words to respond. She signed and spoke her thanks, feeling both humbled and invigorated. It wasn't just a career opportunity. It was a chance to honor the very values that had inspired her to learn ASL in the first place. Later, as she stepped out into the cool evening air, her phone buzzed nonstop. Coworkers who had witnessed the earlier scene sent messages filled with admiration and congratulations. Some admitted they were inspired to start learning sign language themselves. Aaliyah smiled, her heart warm with pride and quiet joy. She thought of her cousin Malik, whose laughter had first drawn her into the world of ASL, and of the quiet man who had turned out to be the company's most powerful leader. All it had taken was a simple hello, a small act of respect that spoke louder than any corporate speech or polished presentation. As the sun dipped behind the glass towers and the city lights began to sparkle, Aaliyah understood something profound. Sometimes the gestures we make without planning, the ones born purely from empathy, are the very ones that change the direction of our lives forever. If you found this story inspiring, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss another powerful video. Thanks for watching.